List the objectives of the Mine Health and Safety Act.
To protect and promote the health and safety of persons working at a mine. To promote a culture of safety. To promote the effective monitoring of health and safety conditions at mines. To require employers and employees to identify hazards and to eliminate, control, and minimize risk. To provide for employee participation. To promote training.
What are the rights and powers of a health and safety representative?
The manager must assist him to perform his functions as a health and safety representative. He must be allowed to meet with the workers he represents. He may instruct a fellow worker to leave a place of work if there is a serious danger. He may request an inspector to investigate any matter regarding health and safety that he is concerned about. He must be informed whenever there is an accident and when and where there is an inspection. He may partake in any health and safety inspection. He must be allowed time off, with pay, to attend training courses.
Name the person that the Minister of Mineral Resources must appoint to assist him/her.
The Mine Health and Safety Act requires the minister to appoint a Chief Inspector of Mines.
State 3 functions of the Chief Inspector of Mines.
Administer the Act and the Mine Health and Safety Inspectorate. Appoint inspectors to assist him or her. Advise the minister on health and safety in mines.
State what the Act requires owners, employers and employees to do with regard to inspectors of mines.
The Act requires the owner, employers and employees to provide an inspector of mines with assistance and facilities that he or she may reasonably require during an inspection.
Question 6. State what the Act requires about answering questions asked by an inspector.
Any person questioned by an inspector of mine must answer each question to the best of their ability, but no person is required to answer any question if the answer may be self-incriminating.
Question 7. Name 6 offenses listed under the Act.
It is an offense to damage, misuse or interfere in any way with health and safety equipment that is provided for use in the mine. It is an offense if a negligent act or omission by one person endangers the safety and health of another person at a mine. It is an offense if a person hinders any other person who is performing a function in terms of the Act. It is an offense if a person attempts to obtain any certificate of competency in a dishonest or fraudulent manner. A person who fails to attend an inquiry which he was instructed or summoned to do, and who fails to answer questions or gives false evidence, commits an offense. Any person who contravenes or fails to comply with the provisions of the Act or any instructions issued under the Act commits an offense.
Question 8. State what can happen to a person if found guilty of an offense under the Act.
Any person convicted of an offense in terms of the Act may be fined by the court, or imprisoned as may be prescribed.
Question 9. Define the following terms. An inspector, an employee, an employer, a hazard, a risk, a health and safety representative, a health hazard, a occupational health.
Inspector means an officer appointed in terms of Section 48(1)(c) of MHSA and a medical inspector. Appointed in terms of Section 49(1)(b) of the MHSA. Employee means any person who is employed or working on a mine. Employer means any person who employs employees. Hazard means a source of, or exposure to danger. Risk means the likelihood that occupational injury or harm to persons will occur. Health and safety representative means an employee elected and appointed in terms of Section 29 of MHSA. Health hazard means any physical, chemical or biological hazard to health, including anything declared to be a health hazard by the minister. Occupational health includes occupational hygiene and occupational medicine.
Question 10. State the employer's duties with regard to codes of practice at a mine.
May prepare and implement a code of practice on any matter regarding the health and safety of employees and other persons, must implement a code of practice if the chief inspector requires it, in which case it must comply with the guidelines issued by the chief inspector, must consult with the Health and Safety Committee on the mine on the preparation and implementation of any code of practice.
Question 11. Name 6 duties that an employee at a mine has with regard to health and safety.
Take reasonable care to protect his own health and safety. Take reasonable care to protect the health and safety of other persons who may be affected by the work that he does. Take proper care of personal protective equipment and other safety facilities provided for his own and other persons' safety and health. Report to his supervisor anything which he believes is a risk to health and safety and which he cannot properly deal with himself. Cooperate with any person with duties and responsibilities under the Act, e.g., an inspector, a supervisor, etc. Comply with prescribed health and safety measures.
Question 12. State what rights an employee has with regard to leaving a dangerous working place and what the manager must do to enable employees to exercise this right.
An employee has the right to leave any working place whenever circumstances arise at the working place which, with reasonable justification, appear to that employee to pose a serious danger to his health and safety. The health and safety representative responsible for that working place tells him to leave that working place. The employer, after consultation with the Health and Safety Committee or representative, must determine effective procedures to enable employees to exercise this right. These procedures must provide for 1. Notification of supervisors and health and safety representative. 2. Participation of management and employee representatives to resolve the issue. 3. Participation, if necessary, of inspectors or technical advisors to resolve the issue.
Question 13. What is the definition of a manager?
Manager means any competent person appointed in terms of Section 3(1)(a).
Question 14. What is the definition of a competent person?
A person who 1. Is qualified by virtue of his knowledge, training, skills and experience to organize the work and its performance. 2. Is familiar with the provisions of the Act and the regulations which apply to the work to be performed. And 3. Has been trained to recognize any potential or actual danger to health or safety in the program of the work or.
Question 15. Which legal appointments are required to be made by the employer at an open cast mine?
1. Manager. 2. Occupational hygienist. 3. Occupational medical practitioner. 4. Rock engineer. 5. Mine surveyor.
Question 16. Which legal appointments are required to be made by the manager at an open cast mine?
A. Engineer where power exceeds 2,500 kilowatts. B. Competent person for machinery where power is less than 2,500 kilowatts. C. Safety officer where persons employed exceed 300. D. Chief safety officer. E. Health and safety representatives.
Question 17. What work may be performed on a Sunday by a mine in terms of Section 9 of the Mines and Works Act of 1956?
No work on certain holidays: Sunday, Christmas, Day of Reconciliation, Good Friday, Republic Day. Allowed exceptions. 1. Essential machinery, pumping, ventilation, or power supply systems. 2. Urgent work, tasks to prevent danger or damage. 3. Continuous processes, chemical, metallurgical, or smelting operations that can't be paused. 4. Old machinery, stamp mills or crushing machines built before December 1911. 5. Critical services, policing, medical, health, housing, or feeding services. 6. National interest, work approved by the minister as necessary. Special permissions, chief inspector may approve other work temporarily if applied for.
Question 18. What accidents must be reported to the principal inspector?
He. Death of any person. B. Any injury to any person likely to be fatal. C. Unconsciousness or incapacitation from heat stroke, heat exhaustion, electric shock or the inhalation of fumes or poisonous gas. D. An injury which prevents the injured person from performing his normal or similar duties for 14 days or more. E. The loss of any limb or part of limb. F. Any permanent disability sustained. G. Extensive caving or subsidence in the ground causing damage to the surface or endangering persons. H. Any accident due to explosives. I. Flooding of the workings. J. Failure of any dam or reservoir used for conserving water or slimes. K. Any fire. L. Any explosion of gas or dust.
Question 19. State the legal requirements regarding the provision and facilities of a change house.
The employer must provide and maintain suitable and adequate A. Change houses to enable employees who perform work involving hazardous substances to change into working clothes at the start of their shift and to wash themselves and change their clothes at the end of their shift. B. Facilities to enable employees who perform work involving hazardous substances to wash their hands and faces before eating any meals at work. C. Readily available latrine facilities within a reasonable distance from each working place.
Question 20. What are the miner's responsibilities regarding the safety of all persons in his/her section?
1. Prevent unauthorized access. Only allow entry after the area is inspected and declared safe. 2. Protect assistants. Safeguard workers from falls and other dangers during safety checks. 3. Handle unsafe areas. Barricade or guard unsafe areas. Only permit access once safe. 4. Prevent falling hazards. Take precautions against injuries from falling objects. 5. Restrict work in unsafe areas. Prohibit work in areas with unstable ground until made safe. 6. Respond to safety complaints. Stop work in unsafe areas and ensure safety through inspections or by certified personnel. 7. Safeguard dangerous operations. Ensure proper support and precautions during risky activities, e.g., drilling, blasting. 8. Withdraw support safely. Only remove support structures after inspecting and adding necessary precautions.
Question 21. When must a relieving miner be appointed? Answer. In cases of emergency, another miner must be appointed in a manner prescribed by the manager. Question 22. What will the first duty of a relieving miner ganger be? Answer. He/she must re-examine and where necessary make safe the working place which he/she has taken over from another miner. Question 23. When can a blasting certificate be withdrawn or cancelled? Answer. If the holder of a blasting certificate is in the opinion of the Principal Inspector of Mines, found guilty of misconduct or gross negligence in the execution of his or her duties or suffers from any infirmity likely to be detrimental to the efficient discharge of his or her duties, the Principal Inspector of Mines may suspend or cancel the blasting certificate. Question 24. Does the holder of a blasting certificate of which his or her certificate has been cancelled or suspended have a right to appeal against such decision? Answer. Yes, the holder of a blasting certificate can appeal against the decision to suspend or cancel the blasting certificate to the Chief Inspector of Mines.
Question 1. What are the requirements of the Code of Practice at your mine to prevent falls of ground?
The employer must implement a code of practice to combat slope instability related accidents in surface mines.
Question 2. What action must the miner take if attempts to take down ground is unsuccessful?
The ganger or miner in charge shall not allow any person to enter, work or remain where he may be endangered by ground which, to his knowledge, any person has attempted to take down or remove until such ground has been made safe.
Question 3. Name 6 causes of fall of ground accidents.
Inspections incorrectly done. 1. High wall dressing not done correctly. 2. Hazard identification not to standard. 3. Working under dangerous high walls. 4. Insufficient clearance of edge. 5. Unstable geological conditions. 6. Poor blasting practices.
Question 4. Name at least four factors which can lead to some joints being more unstable than others.
It is any of the following. A. Strike. B. Dip. C. Roughness. D. Infill. E. Water. F. Spacing. G. Continuity.
Question 5. Name any 4 types of special support used in surface mines.
A. Mesh. B. Shotcrete. C. Cable anchors. D. Gabions.
Question 6. Explain the meaning of rock mechanics.
Rock mechanics can be regarded as the study of the properties and behavior of rock in response to the stresses and changes in stress resulting from mining operations.
Question 7. Explain the meaning of strata control.
Strata control is the mechanisms used to control the immediate rock surrounding an excavation.
Question 8. Explain the meaning of deformation.
If a body is prevented from moving, the applied force will cause deformation or change the shape of the body, elastic movement.
Question 9. Explain the meaning of displacement.
This is the distance a body will move if a sufficient force is applied. It is normally permanent movement, inelastic movement.
Question 10. Explain the meaning of rock fracture.
Fracture is the formation of planes of separation in the rock material. It involves the breaking of bonds to form new surfaces.
Question 11. How must an open-cast mine be protected against flooding? Answer. The employer must take reasonable measures to ensure where the condition at any working place might pose a significant risk to the health and safety of persons resulting from an ingress of water or other fluid material likely to cause drowning or inundation or being trapped, that all working places are adequately protected from such ingress of water or other fluid material. Reasonable measures such as storm water trenches and embankments must be established to prevent flooding of the workings.
Five point 4 Introduction to Explosives. Question 1. What is the definition of explosives?
A substance or a mixture of substances in a solid or liquid state which is capable of producing an explosion. B. A pyrotechnic substance in a solid or liquid state, or a mixture of such substances designed to produce an effect by heat, light, sound, gas, or smoke, or a combination of these, as the result of non-detonative self-sustaining exothermic chemical reaction, including pyrotechnic substances which do not evolve gases. C. Any article or device containing one or more substances contemplated in paragraph A, or any other substance or article which the relevant minister may from time to time by notice in the Gazette declare to be an explosive in terms of the Explosives Act, Act No. 15 of 2003.
Question 2. What is the definition of pumpable explosives?
A. A mixture of ammonium nitrate, with or without other inorganic nitrates, with combustible substances which are not classified as UN number 0082, class 1.1d. B. A mixture of ammonium nitrate, with or without other organic nitrates, partially or wholly dissolved in water, and with the addition of any of the following. C. Ammonium nitrate emulsions, gels and suspensions, intermediate for blasting, classified as UN number 3375. D. Combustible substances which are not explosive, or E. Substances which control the density of the final mix, either by chemical reaction or mechanically, and the final mix is classified as UN number 0241, class 1.1d. F. Any form of explosive which is inserted in a hole by means of pumping.
Question 3. What is the definition of a primer?
is an explosive cartridge or booster into which a detonator or detonating fuse has been inserted or connected.
Question 4. Name 4 factors that influence the selection of an explosive.
Any of the following. A. Physical characteristics, e.g. bulk, packaged. B. Water resistance. C. Density. D. Sensitivity. E. Critical diameter. F. Velocity of detonation. G. Strength of energy. Post-detonation fumes. I. Susceptibility to desensitization. J. Storage life. K. Temperature effects. Cost.
Question 5. Why is explosive density important?
The amount of explosive that is required per blast hole is dependent on the density. The less the density, the more explosive is required, and also where there is water in the blast holes. The density will determine whether the explosive will float or sink.
Question 6. What effects does temperature have on an explosive?
A. High temperature increases the risk of burning or exploding because initiation sensitivity generally increases with temperature. B. Low temperature decreases sensitivity but not enough to cause failure to detonate under normal conditions. In cold climates such as Canada in winter, special low temperature formulations are used.
Question 7. What is the most serious disadvantage of ANFO?
ANFO is very soluble in water, and it is quickly rendered inert in wet blast holes. Low-density ANFO can cause charging difficulties in certain conditions.
Question 8. Name 4 reasons why accidents take place when working with explosives.
Any of the following. A. A lack of respect for explosives. B. When people are in a hurry. C. When there is a change of routine. D. Through ignorance. E. Ignoring regulations and procedures. When people stop thinking.
Question 9. What is the added danger of cellular telephones?
They are continually transmitting radio frequency energy when switched on, even when not being used.
(5.5) Transport, storage and security of explosives. Question 1. In what sequence must explosives be used?
All explosives must be used in the same sequence as they are issued.
Question 2. Name the responsibilities of a person transporting explosives.
A. Count cases or containers issued from magazine. B. Ensure diligence and security of transport to proper destinations. C. Count number of cases or containers delivered.
Question 3. Name precautions to be taken when explosives are loaded or offloaded.
A. No loading within 10 m of fire. B. No smoking or producing a naked flame within 10 m of where explosives are being offloaded.
Question 4. What are the provisions governing the transport of explosives on surface on the mine?
The employer must ensure that every container used for the storage of explosives, including old explosives ZESIS approved in writing for that purpose by the employer.
Question 5. Name 3 important things about vehicles containing explosives.
A. They should never be left unattended. B. They should never be overloaded. C. They should only contain sufficient explosives for the job at hand.
(5.6) Basic blasting designs. Question 1. Name 2 things that need to be considered when selecting a bench height.
The face height should match the blast hole diameter. B. The drill rod length should be taken into account. C. Drilling accuracy becomes more critical and difficult for high faces. The size of the loading equipment. E. Rock and geological characteristics.
Question 2. What is the purpose of stemming and tamping?
A. To prevent fly rock. B. To enhance fracture and displacement of rock by containing heave gas energy.
Question 3. Name 4 categories of environmental effects.
A. Ground vibration. B. Air blast and noise. C. Fly rock. D. Air pollution, dust and gases.
Question 4. According to USBM standards, what is the minimum acceptable noise level during blasting?
The answer is 128 dB.
Blasting procedures. Question 1. When may more than one detonator be used in a charge?
More than one detonator may be used if it is necessary to reinitiate a misfired hole, provided that in wet workings, 2 detonators may be used only if they are both inserted into the same cartridge and securely fastened to it.
Question 2. What precautions must the miner take where firing takes place by means of electricity?
A. The employer must take reasonable measures to ensure that, where initiating takes place by means of electricity, the competent person referred to in Regulation 4.4.1, after such competent person has connected the blasting cable to the detonator wires of any explosive charge or charges, and before such explosive charge or charges have been initiated, does not 1. Remain or approach or cause or permit any other person to remain or approach within a distance where such person may be endangered by the initiating of such explosive charges, except for the purpose of examining the blasting circuit, and 2. Examine the blasting circuit or cause or permit the blasting circuit to be examined unless both leads are disconnected from any source of electricity, whether for initiating explosive charges or testing the blasting circuit. The employer must, where initiation takes place by means of electricity, take reasonable measures to ensure that the competent person referred to in Regulation 4.4.1 only uses a blasting cable provided for that purpose and which is in good order and of sufficient length to ensure that the blasting cable cannot come into contact with any other cable or electrical apparatus. 2. Secures the initiating device of the blast in an adequate and reasonable manner so as to prevent unauthorized access or use of the blasting system. 3. Connects the blasting cable to the detonator wires of any explosive charge or charges or to the wires of the initiator or similar device only after completing all blasting precautions, other than those referred to in paragraphs D, E, and G of this regulation. 4. Does not apply any electrical test to the blasting circuit, except through the blasting cable and from a place of safety. 5. Does not connect the blasting cable to the terminals of the initiating device until immediately before initiation of explosive charges or attempting to initiate the explosive charges. 6. Except in the case of a remotely operated centralized electric blasting system, immediately after initiating or attempting to initiate the explosive charges, disconnects both leads of the blasting cable from the initiating device and then removes the operating handle or key of the initiating device, or secures the locking arrangement of the initiating device and removes the key. In the case of a remotely operated centralized electric blasting system, does not connect the blasting cable to the terminals of the blasting box until immediately before leaving such competent person's working place at the end of the shift, and, in the case of a remotely operated centralized electric blasting system, disconnects immediately at the commencement of the shift any blasting cable from the terminals of the blasting box. The employer must take reasonable measures to ensure that, after the explosive charges have been initiated by means of electricity, the competent person referred to in Regulation 4.4. 1. Carefully examines for misfired holes where the charges have been initiated before permitting any person to work there. 2. Instructs any person engaged in clearing the broken rock, mineral, or ground to report immediately to such competent person the finding of any wires that may lead to a misfired hole. 3. Carefully traces any such wires to determine whether or not a misfired hole has occurred. The employer must take reasonably practicable measures to ensure that where the initiation of explosives takes place by means of electricity and where there is a risk of an explosive charge being initiated by lightning, operations in connection with the preparation or initiation of explosive charges are not started or continued on the approach of or during a thunderstorm, and that no person remains or is caused or permitted by any other person to remain within an area where any person may be injured by the accidental initiation of explosives.
Question 3. What precautions are taken after firing cable has been connected to detonator wires?
And nobody to be within an unsafe distance, except for purpose of examining firing circuit, or B. For the purpose of examining the firing circuit, but with both leads disconnected from source of electricity.
Question 4. Which holes must be stemmed and what stemming material must be used?
A. All holes charged with explosives must be stemmed and tamped. B. Stemming material used must be determined by the employer in consultation with the explosives, manufacturer or supplier.
Question 5. What must you do before firing an explosive charge not contained in a shot hole?
Completely cover the charge with mud, clay, or other non-inflammable material determined for that purpose by the employer in consultation with the explosive manufacturer or supplier.
Question 6. What are the duties of the miner before firing explosive charges?
The employer of every surface mine must take reasonable measures to ensure that A. No person remains or approaches, or is caused or permitted to remain or approach, within 15 meters of any shot hole being charged with explosives, unless such person is assisting in the charging up of shot holes with explosives. B. Except with the written permission of the Principal Inspector of Mines, explosives are not brought to the working place where blasting is to be carried out until the shot holes are ready to be charged with explosives, and the quantity of explosives brought to the working place do not exceed the estimated required quantity. C. Before the initiation of explosive charges, an adequate number of guards are stationed at a safe distance, determined by a risk assessment to prevent persons accessing the blasting area, and that the guards remain at the safe distance until the initiation of explosive charges completed, and the guards are recalled by the competent person referred to in Regulation 4.4.1. And D. At least 3 minutes before an explosive charge is initiated, the competent person referred to in Regulation 4.4.1 gives due warning of the initiation of explosive charges.
Question 9. What must be done with explosives found amongst the rocks or explosives recovered from misfires?
It must immediately be placed in the non-metallic boxes provided by the employer. Blasting cartridges and detonators, or other initiators, to be placed in separate boxes.
Question 10. A. How would you know when explosives are frozen, and B. What would you do with it?
A. The explosives will be hard, and in some cases, crystallized on outside. B. Allowed to thaw slowly in a safe place, warmed by the sun.
Question 11. How may you test a circuit containing an electric detonator?
The miner must only use as a means, appliance, or material supplied by the employer for the purpose of initiating of explosive charges or testing of a blasting circuit.
Question 12. What precautions should you take in a surface mine where firing takes place by means of electricity when a thunderstorm is approaching?
The employer must take reasonably practicable measures to ensure that where the initiation of explosives takes place by means of electricity, and where there is a risk of an explosive charge being initiated by lightning. Operations in connection with the preparation or initiation of explosive charges are not started or continued on the approach of or during a thunderstorm, and that no person remains or is caused or permitted by any other person to remain within an area where any person may be injured by the accidental initiation of explosives.
Question 13. How far must persons not assisting with charging of holes remain from the miner?
The employer of every surface mine must take reasonable measures to ensure that no person remains or approaches or is caused or permitted to remain or approach within 15 meters of any shot hole being charged with explosives, unless such person is assisting in the charging up of shot holes with explosives.
Question 14. When may explosives be brought to the working place and how many?
The employer of every surface mine must take reasonable measures to ensure that, except with the written permission of the Principal Inspector of Mines, explosives are not brought to the working place where blasting is to be carried out until the shot holes are ready to be charged with explosives, and the quantity of explosives brought to the working place do not exceed the estimated required quantity.
Question 15. How must holes deeper than 3 meters be primed?
With detonating fuse, which shall extend to bottom of the charge and protrude 150 millimeters outside the hole.
Question 16. What precautions must be taken before any charge is fired?
The employer of every surface mine must take reasonable measures to ensure that, before the initiation of explosive charges, an adequate number of guards are stationed at a safe distance, determined by a risk assessment to prevent persons accessing the blasting area, and that the guards remain at the safe distance until the initiation of explosive charges is completed, and the guards are recalled by the competent person referred to in Regulation 4.4.1. And B. At least 3 minutes before an explosive charge is initiated, the competent person referred to in Regulation 4.4.1 gives due warning of the initiation of explosive charges.
Question 17. What precautions must be taken before allowing persons to enter or approach the place where blasting has taken place?
The employer must take reasonable measures to ensure that after explosive charges have been initiated or misfired holes have been reinitiated, the competent person referred to in Regulation 4.4.1 does not approach or causes or permits any other person to approach within the range of the exploding charges until such competent person is satisfied that all the explosive charges have exploded, or until a period of 30 minutes has expired after the initiation of the charges.
Question 18. What precautions must be taken by a person extracting explosives from a hole?
The person extracting explosives from a misfired hole. A. Ensures as far as reasonably practicable that all the explosives in the misfired hole are extracted. And B. Recovers all explosives that have been extracted from the misfired hole.
Question 19. What precautions must be taken before marking holes?
In surface mines, before the miner, ganger points out or marks any shot hole for drilling, or authorizes any other person to point out or mark the position and direction of any shot hole for drilling. Such competent person searches for any misfired hole or socket within a distance of at least 2 meters from the proposed position or mark.
Question 20. How do you mark holes?
Mark clearly with paint, etc., or if impracticable, point out position and direction of hole. And no hole must be marked nearer than 150 millimeters from a socket, or 2 meters from a misfired hole.
Question 21. What precautions must be taken when working in trenches or near high walls?
A. Never undercut the face or sidewall or portion of a dump, dam, or heap. B. The face or sidewall above the level where persons may work must be sloped or terraced at a safe angle or adequately supported where the vertical height is. I, 3 meters or more, or I, less than 3 meters but more than 1. 5 meter if the width of the working is less than the height of the face or sidewall.
Question 22. What general precautions must be taken to prevent fly rock?
A. Ensure that stemming is equal to or more than your burden. B. Stemming must be tamped with a wooden stick, where practical stick's end must be flat. C. Correct tie-in of pattern must be used to prevent boxing. D. Overcharged holes explosives must be removed.
Question 24. How should old explosives be destroyed?
A. The employer must ensure that a written procedure is prepared and implemented, after consultation with the explosive manufacturer or supplier, to ensure that explosives are destroyed safely and not reused for any purpose. Such procedure must include measures to ensure that 1. Only the competent person, Minna, Ganger, destroys explosives. 2. The Chief Inspector of Explosives is informed in advance if more than 50 kilograms of explosives are to be destroyed at any one time. And 3. No person destroys explosives on surface within a horizontal distance of 150 meters of any public building, public thoroughfare, railway line, power line, or any place where people congregate, or any other structure, which it may be necessary to protect in order to prevent any significant risk, unless a risk assessment has identified a lesser safe distance and any restrictions and conditions to be complied with. A copy of the risk assessment, restrictions and conditions contemplated in paragraph A have been provided for approval to the Principal Inspector of Mines. Written permission has been granted by the Principal Inspector of Mines, and any restrictions and conditions determined by the Principal Inspector of Mines are complied with. B. Not more than 5 kilograms of explosives can be destroyed at one time. 1. Dig a hole 2 meter deep. 2. Place the old explosives into it, with a new primer firmly attached to the old explosive. 3. Fill the hole with sand. 4. Follow the laid-down blast procedure. 5. Fire the charge. And 6. After a period of 30 minutes, examine whether the old explosive has been destroyed. C. Old explosive can also be destroyed by tying them into the blast pattern in an open-cast mine. Cover with an adequate amount of sand to avoid noise vibration.
Question 25. What is the disadvantage when blasting secondary boulders which are at the toe position of a primary blast?
A. The secondary boulders could create cutoffs on the primary blast. Or B. The primary blast could create cutoffs between the boulders, which will create misfires, and the misfires will be covered by the muck from the primary blast.
Question 26. Name the 7 important points that apply when electric detonators are used for blasting.
A. Test the detonator circuit for continuity with an approved tester. B. Test the electric cables for continuity. C. The blaster must keep the handle, key, from the firing apparatus on his person. D. The blaster must make all the electric connections personally. E. The electric firing cable to be of sufficient length. F. Do not connect the firing cable to the shot exploder until immediately before firing the charges. G. After the blast, disconnect the electric firing cable from the shot exploder and short the wires out.
Question 27. May a hole, which was not drilled to its correct depth, be drilled deeper by the next shift?
No person deepens, or causes, or permits any other person to deepen any shot hole that has been left standing, or which has not been completed at the end of a shift, unless it has not been charged with explosives, and has been clearly described by the competent person referred to in Regulation 4.4.1. In charge of the shift leaving work to the competent person referred to in Regulation 4.4.1. In charge of the shift about to commence.
Question 28. Name the important properties and use of a shot exploder.
A removable handle. B. A serial number. C. Must be kept in a safe place. D. The shot exploder must have sufficient capacity to fire the intended number of blast holes. E. Approved by the employer in consultation with the explosives manufacturer of supplier.
Question 29. In open cast mines there is normally a safe distance where flag men/women are positioned to guard the entrances to the blasting area. What can influence the responsible person to increase or decrease the blast? Clearance distance.
The clearance distance can be increased if there A. Are overcharged holes. B. Is insufficient burden on crest holes. C. Is a presence of wind. The clearance distance can be decreased. A. If there is a very small amount of explosive charge to be initiated. B. When the explosive charge is heavily covered with sand and the possibility of fly rock is 0. The employer, in consultation with the explosive manufacturer, must conduct a risk assessment to determine a safe clearance distance.
Question 30. Name the 3 major factors that affect the magnitude of drilling deflection.
A. Structural geology. B. Angle of drilling. C. Stiffness of the drill string stabilizers.
Question 31. Why is a subdrill used?
A subdrill is used to ensure an even bench floor.
Question 32. Name 6 factors on which drilling patterns are dependent.
A. Blast hole diameter. B. Rock properties. C. Degree of fragmentation required. D. Displacement required. E. Height of the face. F. Explosive properties.
Question 33. Name 5 requirements for a suitable site to destroy explosives by detonation.
A. It should be remote from all people, roads and buildings. B. It must be an open area cleared of all vegetation that could catch fire. C. The ground must be free of stones, which might be thrown by the blast. D. It must be possible to block or guard all access to the site. E. A safe firing location must be available for possible projectiles.
Question 34. When packages of explosives are placed out to be destroyed, may they overlap?
No, they may not. They should be placed on each bed in a single layer, without overlapping.
Question 35. Name 4 safety factors that must be considered when destroying explosive products by burning.
A. Do not burn more than one type of explosive at the same time. B. Do not burn explosives if there is a strong wind. C. Stay in a safe place until 30 minutes after all flames and smoke are completely gone. D. If the fire goes out unexpectedly, do not return to the site until at least 30 minutes, after all traces of fire and smoke are gone.
Question 36. The dust and fumes from blasts can take a relatively long time to clear. What are the possible consequences if adequate time is not allowed before re-entering the blast area?
A. Injury due to the inhalation of toxic gases and post-blast fumes. B. Collisions, falling or tripping due to reduced visibility. C. Inability to detect unstable rock.
Question 37. What does refiring of holes results in?
Refiring of blast holes almost always produce more fly rock as a result of the previous fragmentation.
Question 38. What precautions must be taken to prevent danger of a fly rock?
A. Tamp to a depth at least equal to the burden of the hole. B. Do not undercharge or overcharge the holes with explosives. C. Use detonating relays or short-period delays detonators. D. Fire the explosive charges in sequence.
5.9 Dust Prevention. Question 1. Name 6 causes of dust.
Blasting operations. B. Rock being broken up at tips. C. Loading and transporting of broken rock. D. Tipping of ore and waste rock. E. Haul roads. F. Drilling. G. Crushing and screening.
Question 2. Name 5 ways in which the inhalation of dust can be prevented.
A wetting of dusty surfaces and ground where any work is to be performed. B. Not use a drill rig unless the means provided for allaying dust is in good working order. C. Not enter blasted areas before expiry of re-entry period. D. At tipping point and transfer points, atomizers, sprays, or dust extraction systems must be provided. E. Where appropriate, dust protective device or equipment.
Question 3. Where is dust likely to be generated, and how can this be controlled?
Where rock or other mineral is reduced in size, moved or handled in such a way that it will produce dust. Prevent generation of dust at source. B. Prevent liberation of dust at source. C. Where appropriate, dust protective device or equipment.